A pretty wild day here in the index. Let's go ahead and recap exactly the setup that transpired with what we were looking at this morning. So coming into the session, this definitely was a near-term range. We were looking at 4,300 down into 4290 as an area of support, pretty much looking for a potential repeat of the move up into 43.35, which is what we saw yesterday, and potentially 43.50, assuming that the near-term range did not break down. Now, it was mentioned in the pre-market prep live stream that we did have that 43.15 near-term daily volume point of control. Just the volume point of control for this week-long range here is right there at 43.15, which just tells us that most of the volume over the past, 5 or 6 sessions has traded hands at that 43.15 level. And so coming into the session today, let me bring up the shorter time frame. Essentially what we had was a bit of a drift higher off of that 4,300 level, off of that prior day low level. If I bring my levels back onto the chart here, you can see it more clearly. Here was prior day low. Testing pre-market, right? You get into regular trading hours. Price has a tough time pushing up through that 200 MA. I did have some longs through here that were sold into VWAP. We get into 10 a.m. We did have the JOLTS data at 10 a.m. Price pretty much just pukes, right? Mark a high at 10 a.m. pretty much quickly into session lows. We're breaking prior day low. This momentum move, very, very hard to capture. The trade that I ended up going with was the bounce into the retest of the prior day low. Remember, this morning, the game plan was to watch for that 4,300 or the 4,290 zone to hold. When you see some action like this, it's clear that support is not holding, right? And so we don't want to chase just because our levels are breaking. We still need a great entry. Great entry materialized right through here with that retest of the prior day low and reject. And we short it down into the next level of interest, which happened to be the Wednesday low. Now, from there, I was looking for a daily time frame move into pretty much this 4230 area. As a reminder, we've talked about this quite a bit, but as a reminder, this is the daily volume point of control from the tight range prior to the summer rally. All right, so range-bound trading all through here, obviously some accumulation, and then that triggers the summer rally. Now we're pretty much back into that prior breakout point. I would like to see this level actually be tested, maybe overnight, maybe tomorrow. That is a potential bounce point that we will be looking at. For today, we pretty much have seen that scenario I mentioned in the weekly kickoff transpire, which was watch for a potential undercut of the recent lows and then maybe a bounce to align with the end of year seasonality. All right, we are coming into a very strong period of seasonality, which usually marks a low in early October. So from a seasonal perspective, this price action is pretty normal. As far as the late morning, early afternoon trading, there was not really a lot of other opportunities that I saw here that I was interested in. If you were tuning into the end of day recaps, the end of day commentaries from last week, you'll know that I am very cautious with any bounces, any afternoon bounces after we break a big area of support. This drift higher is not really a trade that I'm interested in. Can you make money here? Sure. But is it a high probability setup that we always want to be focusing on? Definitely not. Definitely not. We've got a break of key technical levels on the higher time frame chart. This bounce is just an opportunity to look for re-shorts, right? Reestablishing our short positions. And that's pretty much exactly what we saw. Price drifts higher. You retest that Wednesday low, last Wednesday low, our level of interest right there. Pretty much marks a lower high right at that level before eventually making a fresh session low. On SPY, we do have the 2-hour trader framework entry triggering right there. First short entry with this framework triggering for the session right through here. Ended up working out nicely with a move down into fresh session lows. Now we're just kind of, again, drifting. No real decision. here within price action. The interesting thing about SPY here is that we do have the 200 MA right down here, right into our S3 for the day. So didn't quite get there. Pretty close. I would not be too surprised to see an open around that 200 MA, maybe even a flush below before recovering. This is definitely going to be a heavily watched level for obvious reasons. And so we'll be looking at that tomorrow. There is more Fed speak tomorrow. I believe we also have some data. And so that is something I'll be watching for. The game plan for tomorrow is pretty simple. Keep in mind we are breaking big technical levels, right? So again, in the weekly kickoff, just to reiterate, one thing that I had posted about was or written about in the weekly kickoff was this trend line, right? Not a big trend line guy, but this is definitely something we want to be keeping an eye on. Price is pretty much holding there. Obviously, today is the breakdown. So the trend from last October actually, is pretty much broken here. This is a weekly time frame trend. Ties in with the idea I mentioned earlier about being cautious with trying longs on a day like today. It's very unusual when you have this type of breakdown that is just going to post a V-type recovery. I'm only going to be grabbing longs on this type of session if I expect, a move up through VWAP. That is such low probability today that you want to be very, very cautious with that kind of trade. I just offer that tip because I've been absolutely steamrolled trying those afternoon longs repeatedly in a clear trend lower, in a very clear trend lower. So be careful with that type of trade. Zoom out, understand the big picture. This is a technical breakdown. The second that 42.90 broke, pretty much the second after 10 a.m., after we had that news, it was a short focus. Only focused on shorts, no longs. The second that move transpired. And again, it has to do with the daily setup. It has to do with the near-term range. So if you find yourself grabbing longs here, you may want to reevaluate just to make sure you know what you're getting involved with. This is what I call no man's land. Right through here, 42.60, I have no level there. Right, 42.50 was my first level. Really, I wanted 42.30, and then I'll start to consider, all right, this is starting to get into some major support area. Maybe it's worthwhile looking at a bounce. But this right here, that's just afternoon drift, right? Low volume drift higher, almost always gets faded. Almost always gets faded. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind for future reference. You want to be reloading your shorts over here. Now, for tomorrow, what I'm going to be looking at is the 42.50 area. We pretty much just want to see if sellers are going to remain in control, if they can show follow through on today's move. Look at the volume from today. Still have about 20 minutes into the close, and we're trading at 130% daily average volume. So if we really zoom in here on the volume bars, this is not an anomaly. Today's action is not an anomaly. Volume is matching the daily bar there. So we should keep in mind, volume is going to be higher into the close. So again, the main watch is just to see if sellers can remain in control and push this thing a bit lower into that 42.30. That's where I'll be interested in potentially seeing if we can grab any type of long trades. Again, this is a type of environment you really want to stay nimble. When you have action like this, it's super easy to see price overshoot the level and then reclaim, right? So things you want to be careful with. Definitely an environment where you want to be staying nimble. Okay, so pretty clean setup for today from the pre-market plan that we had. We'll see what kind of action we get overnight, and then we'll set up the plan for tomorrow. But as of right now, as price currently sits, we're just looking for that continuation into 43.30, evaluating price action there, see if it holds or not. If it fails, we have 4,200, right? Below 4,200, it really starts to get pretty ugly for buyers, for the market as a whole. You have a big volume void below that point. So everyone who accumulated through here, keep in mind, this is April, early April into June. So this is months worth of accumulation. Everyone who accumulated through here, assuming they haven't sold yet, they will be underwater. They will be underwater. So setup is definitely quite interesting here. We do have pretty clear levels to be working with as we get into October, as we get into Q4, as we get into the midpoint of this week. SPY 200 MA, again, key reference point right there, 419. If you focus on SPY, you need eyeballs on 419, 200 MA. So that's the index. As far as individual names, pretty dry. I'm looking at AMD, still on swing watch, right? We want to see this. This is a trend lower. We are testing the 200 MA. Want to see if we can get a good entry somewhere around here, around 96, aligning with that kind of seasonal strength that we're coming into for a break of this trend lower. You want to be positioned before that break actually materializes. But again, there's no rush on a setup like this with the index just breaking key areas of support. Same with Netflix, testing the 200 MA, but again, no rush, right? We need some index help on these trades, absolutely. It's unlikely that they go on their own. That was all I had for individual names. It is pretty dry out there for setups within individual names. Pretty much going to be focused on the index tomorrow. Benny, you're asking about NQ level of interest, 14,600. Let's take a look. I've not looked at NQ all week. Been focused heavily on ES. Yeah, your 600 area. So Wednesday's low. Yeah, this is like a must hold level for buyers. Absolutely. So watch that 600 key area of support, right? If this gives out, again, look at the volume void. So anytime you have a big volume void, price can move quickly. You can get a momentum move through there. Something to definitely keep an eye on, that 14,600 level. Yeah. If you like trading NQ, 14,600 is on watch. I've been focused more and more on ES and seeing even greater profits due to that focus. So I'm keeping my focus there. I tend to do better when I do less. I practice what I preach. Less is more. And so today, solid day. Caught over 20 points yesterday, 45 points in ES. So you don't need to watch both if you don't want to. Just something to keep in mind to post a great day, right? So any other questions? We've got a pretty straightforward setup here to work with in ES or SPY, whatever your flavor is. And NQ even, if you like to trade the NQ. Yeah, with the NQ, I've not been able to dial in the risk parameters as tightly as ES. So I just stick with the ES. Tesla, absolutely. D-Wall, let's take a look. So yes, sir. Inside day. Remember these inside days, I like to see elevated volume. We are just trading on below average volume here. And so it doesn't really carry a lot of weight per my system. With the inside day, you usually just go with the break, whichever direction it breaks in. But again, below average volume. And so I don't think you'll have a lot of participation in that move. Simply due to volume. But yeah, that is definitely, if we only look at price and ignore volume, that is definitely an inside day. I think the easier plays are definitely going to be in the index. Anytime the index is trading on big volume, higher than average volume, focus should absolutely be on the index. That's where all the action is. Most stocks are just going to trade with the index. There will be, certain exceptions here and there, but especially a name like Tesla, mega cap, right? A lot of these mega cap names that have just been essentially an index play. So I know you trade ES and NQ, so it's like, well, Do we really want to trade Tesla unless it really shows us something different than what the index is showing? Which, to your point, today it is. Today it is compared to ES. Let's compare it to NQ as well. So, all right. Any other questions? Pretty nice day. Clean action. Sweet. All right, guys. Hope you had a good one. Hope you all banked today. I will see you in the morning. Pre-market prep live. Have a great afternoon. Take care.